Welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder. And today's episode is brought to you by Milk and Honey Breast Milk Jewelry. Yes. Welcome to Milk and Honey Jewelry. Milk and Honey is a keepsake jewelry company specializing in heirloom quality jewelry made with your own breast milk. Super cool to have a keepsake like that. And you don't need very much breast milk. I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I can't spare. You can. It's like literally like drops that they need. So we'll hear more from our sponsor later, but you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check our sponsor page. If you ever need anything, see if you can give them any of your business because they make this podcast possible. And while you're there, you can scroll down and enter your email address, and we will send episodes straight to your inbox every week. And we are also on Patreon, and we would love to see you there. We're having so much fun with our Zoom hangouts where we hang out together and get advice and share and vent. And our extra episodes, our mini podcasts, and our Revolution Parenting episodes are over there. And it's just a fun place to be and positive and all of that. So you can head to the show notes under this episode, wherever you're listening from, or over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. You can find the link to the tiers and choose one that fits your desires. And we're also doing our ongoing giveaway for people who leave reviews around the internet, whether it's stars on Spotify or written reviews on iTunes or wherever you're listening from. If you're able to leave a review, take a screenshot, send it to badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com, and we will send you a goodie bag of stickers and thank you for nursing in public cards. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
I do. This podcast was suggested to me by my midwife before birth, and I'm beyond thankful. Breastfeeding was the biggest source of anxiety for me going into motherhood. I'd heard so many stories of it not working out that I was worried it would happen to me too. What I've learned while listening helped me to feel confident when it came time to feed my son for the first time, to advocate for us both when we ended up in the NICU and they wanted to overfeed him and supplement with formula, what hunger cues looked like, and when it was time to reach out to my friendly local IBCLC, Dianne, that was me, when my oversupply became too uncomfortable. The Breastfeeding 101, 102, all the newborn ones, and myths episodes are so helpful for basics. We are still very early in our breastfeeding journey, but I know there's an episode for everything we could run into. Thank you both for making me laugh and being such a wealth of knowledge. We couldn't do this without you. And thank you so much. She knows who she is. She had a wonderful home birth, and then they ended up in the NICU after the home birth. So she really was an amazing advocate for her son. It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
In that kind of a situation.
Yes.
And she really did an amazing job being an advocate for her son. So to even say that we were part of that, I feel so honored. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah. Congratulations on getting through that.
I know. My goodness. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about distracted babies today.
Oh boy, did we see some distracted babies in Detroit. Hey, Detroit.
Oh,
it was
Detroit.
so nice to be there. Detroit, you know what I said? Last year, I was like, wow, Detroit was really engaging and really like positive and really like hopping, and like everybody was like happy and fun loving and nice. And then we went back this year and I was like, well, I don't know, maybe that was just a one-time thing. And it was the exact same thing.
Yeah, they were amazing.
What is it about Detroit people are just so like nice and fun and really positive? And I don't know. I just think about the history of the city and everything it's been through. You'd think people would be like not that happy about it. I mean, just because it's been rough.
Yeah.
Just historically.
And we got to meet one of our patrons, which was really cool.
We did. We got to meet Ashley. Shout out to Ashley. Oh, I got to post that picture on Patreon. We took a picture together.
Yeah, Detroit was really fun. And we did see some distracted babies in Detroit for sure.
God. Well, yeah.
How could you not be?
It's really hard for babies not to be distracted. We also went to this like water park thing recently, a couple days ago, whatever. I told you about that. After Detroit, we were going to this water park hotel thing. Mm-hmm. And people had their like newborn babies in the pool.
Oh my gosh.
And it wasn't just like a pool. It wasn't like, your neighborhood pool. It was like a water park with like slides and splashing water and a lazy river and people were just like floating with their newborns.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, that must be so. It must be, that's like stimulation maximum.
Oh my gosh.
Newborns were just like, their eyes are just like wide. So I would imagine that would be also a situation. And these are extreme situations. Like babies can get distracted in your living room.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh. But yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Holy cow. And then I saw, and the reason why we're doing this today, like we did see those distracted babies last weekend. And then I saw a couple really distracted babies this week in my private practice. And they were like so distracted, these babies. They were hilarious. They were just like, and we're just sitting in my little office, which is basically an exam room because I rent an exam room from a local primary care.
Yeah.
And that's all it is an exam room. There's nothing exciting going on in there.
Oh, well, that's your opinion.
Yeah,
that's
my opinion was there's
man.
nothing.
Yeah, right.
There's like, they were out of control, these babies. They were hilarious. So then I looked to see, had we done this in a while, and it's been a long time since we talked about distracted babies. So I thought we would talk about it again.
Yeah.
But distracted babies, they are really hard to feed. They're really hard to feed. And you see that distraction start like around 4 months, 3-4 months. They start with being like super distracted. There's so much stuff going on around them. There's so much stuff to look at. You hear like you're trying to nurse them and there's like a noise and they looking around and the dog comes in the room, or, it's really bad if they have siblings. Like if there's other siblings, like did Jack used to totally distract Exley all the time?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, Jack was and still is the most interesting thing to Exley. That's usually how the siblings are going to be. Like that, the youngest one is going to just be absolutely fascinated with the older one.
Yeah.
And he always wanted to see what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so he was just not eating, or he'd like latch on and then turn around and pop off.
Mm-hmm.
Or push me away. I'm like, let's sit down, let's eat. No, push me away.
Yeah, that's what they do. Or they'll eat for a second and then want to go play, wiggle around, and like you said, push off, or keep turning their head, or latch for a second, turn their head, come off.
Or latch and stay latched and turn all the way around.
Oh yeah, that's another thing they like to do. Yeah. Yeah. One of the moms one of the moms this week with the distracted baby, I had a little boy that was distracted and a little girl that was distracted. And the little boy, she goes, sometimes sometimes I can't even look at him. Like I can't even make eye contact with him because then he'll stop and he'll smile at me, which is super cute, like when you're trying to nurse them, but then they're not nursing anymore. She goes, I can't even look. I can't. She's like whispering to me because you can't talk.
Yep.
And I don't like to move because I know how distracted they are. And I want to see how the latch looks. And I'm like, trying not to move at all and don't want to talk and ask questions because it's going to totally disrupt everything. It can be really hard.
Then you have people that are like, I don't think he's getting enough. Like they won't eat. And then it turns into a whole thing where you're afraid, just like everything else.
Yeah, I know. And the little girl, and both these babies were chunkers.
Yeah.
And I was wondering how they got any food into them because they were just like super distracted and had so much other stuff to do. And the little girl, she was just like, like she was caffeined up or something. She was just like totally like her little legs were going every second and she's looking all around and, she was super cute. And just really, really distracted. So what can really happen with these babies is it's so developmental. They just want to see what's going on in the world around them. And 4 months is a really high developmental time for babies too. So there's a lot of changes happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. They're learning all this new stuff. They're starting to learn how to roll. They're becoming really distracted. They want to see what's going on in the world, and feeding them is a challenge. Like it's really a challenge. And one of the things that happens that people really struggle with is that they want to they only feed for little bits at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Gabby was saying, and then they make up for it overnight. So sometimes that sleeping can become difficult.
Yeah. And this is when people are like, oh, maybe you had a baby that was sleeping for some stretches and now they're not. They're just up all night. And
Eating.
then that leads to frustration and tiredness and worry as well.
It's a lot of frustration that leads to, because then they want to fix, it's like, how do I get them back?
Yeah.
And it's really hard. Like, I don't really have the right answer for that because they are really distracted, and it is hard to get them to eat a decent full feeding during the daytime sometimes.
Yeah.
And it is really, if you don't have siblings, you don't have other little kids running around, then you can do things like take them in a quiet room, and take them in a dark, quiet room and nurse them. Because a lot of times people say, well, they do fine like before a nap or before bedtime.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do better. But during the daytime can be really a lot more of a struggle because there's just too much happening around them. And if you have other siblings, it's not like you can, like, you got some toddlers running around. You can't really go into a dark room with this little baby and hope that the toddlers don't set the house on fire. And
no, you can't. I mean, you could try things like nursing in a carrier or using like a little blanket or something to cover their head.
Yeah.
In the carrier or while you're holding them or something to try to get them to not see. It's like horse blinders.
Oh my God.
It's like, don't look over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard because they can still hear. They
can hear what's going on around them. Sort of like,
but
they're so funny.
Yeah. But so you can know that if your baby is not eating very much during the day and they're eating a lot at night, or maybe if they're not eating a lot during the day and they're at that 4-month period or later, pay attention. Like if you're worried, because people will say, oh, well, they don't eat. They're not eating at all. I think they're weaning. But think for a second. Think like, what happens at night? Oh, they're just latched on all night. Okay. They don't have to get all their food during the day. They can get it all at night. They can be fine. I mean, it's going to be exhausting for you, but.
One of the parents that I saw this week with a distracted baby, she said that, that she really loved bed sharing, because bed sharing for something like this, would be ideal, but that he does just nurse all night. Mm-hmm. She goes, if we're bed sharing, he'll just nurse all night long and then doesn't nurse well during the day. So it kind of becomes this cycle, and she didn't want that to happen. So she's just kind of like, I don't know how to break that routine.
Yeah.
And
I think that's more of like kind of a weighted out thing.
Yeah.
Is it? I mean, really nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah, that's really hard. It's really hard. It's hard.
Well, so what did you tell her?
Well, because she's also, I said, well, how does he do when you put him in the, like in his own sleep space? And she said that he would wake up sometimes after only a couple hours, and sometimes she would end up putting him in bed with her. But then that's hard if he wants, it's just hard. Just the whole thing is hard because he's not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, I'm like, can you have, because obviously, I mean, he's a big boy. Mm-hmm. And she said he's pretty easy to settle. He doesn't always need to eat. But if he's with her, then he'll just latch. Yeah. But he's not sleeping through, because we know babies at that age too, well, you get that 4-month sleep regression. I hate the sleep regression statement, but and this is part of it. And they're not sleeping through those sleep cycles. Like they're waking up with those sleep cycles, and then they need help getting back to sleep.
Right.
Like we know that's happening with them. So she said that, like, I'm like, well, can you get your husband to go and soothe him for some, because you know that he just ate 2 hours ago, and he probably doesn't need to eat again, and he just needs to be soothed back to sleep. Then see if your partner can go and soothe him back to sleep. And, have it done that way instead of you always having to get up with him. But then you get two, like, especially because she has another one at home too. And she just like, you don't want them to fuss and cry too much to wake up the other one. It becomes a whole ordeal.
Yeah. I remember that being a very particular thing. So I used to, of Rebecca Meeke on the podcast, and we actually saw her in Detroit. So that was fun.
We did. It was so exciting.
But when I was working with her a long time ago, Exley would go to sleep fairly easily. Like he was easy to put to sleep, but he was just waking. He was waking a lot, and he wasn't sleeping. He would wake up at like 5 a.m, like ready for the day. And like now he's 9 and he wakes up at like 6:30. So that's just him.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I remember her telling me was, because I would just nurse him back to sleep. We were bed sharing. We still are. I would, he would fuss, and I would kind of, when he got a little bit older, he was not always latched on when he was sleeping. So I would pull him over towards me and latch him on and nurse him back to sleep. And she said, why don't you try, instead of, because you're waking him all the way up when you do that. Like instead of moving him and, causing all of that, just try kind of like patting his butt, or like, putting my hand on his back and rubbing his back, and see if he'll go back to sleep that way, instead of me moving him over to me to nurse him. So all of that to say that, yes, maybe you can try soothing them. I'm not saying don't nurse them back to sleep, because obviously that's totally normal and a thing to do.
Right.
But if they're not all the way awake, that is something that a partner can maybe try to do, is go in and just, or even you on the bed. If they're in bed with you, just don't move them. Don't move. If they start kind of fussing around, try just patting their butt or rubbing their back. Or I would like put my hand on his butt and move him back and forth, and kind of like, so he was like rocking.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I did tell her to check out, because she is a podcast listener too, and I told her to check out the Rebecca Meeke episodes, because they are definitely struggling with the sleep piece of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is so, like you said, it's so developmental that it's often a phase, that you kind of have to get through, just like teething, or, any of the other phases that we go through, where you're kind of like, you're trying things during the day, like you're trying to create like an area where that's not distracted, so the baby can eat, and you're trying these different things, but you're getting through a phase that you can't just not go through. The only way past it is through it.
Yeah. Very profound.
Well, you know me.
Should we do our break?
Yeah, let's take a break, and I can tell you about this sponsor. We'll be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Milk and Honey Jewelry. Milk and Honey is a keepsake jewelry company specializing in heirloom quality jewelry made with your own breast milk. Ordering is super simple. Head to milkandhoney.jewelry.com to choose the jewelry style you want. You'll get simple instructions for sending your breast milk to them. Milk and Honey preserves your milk and sets it in a stone in a custom jewelry setting. They have rings, they have necklaces, earrings, bracelets, and charms available. Plus, they safely store your leftover preserved milk in case you ever want to order again. They are a mom-owned business and run by a team of 8 women, crafting every single piece of jewelry by hand from scratch in-house. Over the last 6 years they've been in business, they've crafted breast milk jewelry for over 16,000 customers. And I know sometimes people will say, do you know of a breast milk jewelry company, that you can vouch for? Because I'm really nervous about sending off my breast milk jewelry to someone random. And so you can know that when you hear of things here, like Milk and Honey Jewelry, that we are vouching for them. So head to milkandhoney.jewelry.com and use code BADASS for 20% off of your order. That's milkandhoney.jewelry and use code BADASS for 20% off.
I am super excited about this because they have birthstone beads that you can make jewelry out of.
I remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah. For people like me that don't have milk. So I can make birthstone bracelets.
That is really
for my
cool.
kids. So I'm super excited. I'm going to do that. I
Oh,
might do them
nice.
for my sisters and stuff too.
Oh my God. That's really
for gifts,
cool.
like for Christmas and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking about how this would be, something like this could be a good, like a gift to a grandma too.
Yeah.
You know, like even breast milk jewelry. Like,
it'd be amazing.
what
an amazing gift to get from somebody.
I know.
It would be so
It's
cool.
so cool. So you can head to like I just said several times, milkandhoney.jewelry. And don't forget to use code BADASS because you're going to get 20% off. And you can find all of our sponsors and the promo codes in the show notes under this episode. Also, all of the sponsors over at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. And over there, you'll also find information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yes.
Which lots of people do who are listeners. So
yes,
if you're wondering if that's a thing that people actually do, it is.
They do.
You can go ahead and do it.
Yeah, we can talk about your distracted baby and what to do with them.
Put a bag over their head, which is funny because that's kind of what you're doing.
Oh, it's what you want to do. My gosh. But sometimes even like these babies don't even nap well.
Oh yeah.
Too.
That's what I was just thinking. A lot of I can remember just a lot of naps happening in the carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Like getting them in the carrier, nursing them until they were sleeping, and then they would just do their whole nap in the carrier with me, kind of just standing around or sitting in a rocking chair and just doing it that way because it was just easier.
If you don't have a carrier, definitely get one.
God, you got to get one.
You have to.
You got to get one. We were talking about doing a baby registry, like things you actually need. And there's so little. Yeah, we got to do an episode on that because there's so few things that you need. But God, you need a carrier.
You definitely need a carrier. You got to have a carrier.
And that's so we don't think of that as a necessity. But it has to, we have to normalize that as being just like one of the main things that people need.
Oh my God. Absolutely. Because it's going
to help through so many of those,
these phases.
So many of those phases. Yeah. Not just the distracted ones, but all of them.
Yeah. You get into these developmental phases, like we were saying, like 4 months is a pretty high time where you're going to see this. And some of the things you can do, like we were saying, the carrier is huge. If you can nurse in the carrier, one of the moms I saw this week said that she does do that. Nurses in the carrier. That's great for naps. Taking them into a dark room, limiting the stimulation as much as possible. You know, like maybe you can't obviously take away the toddler or anything like that. Or maybe you can't get into a dark, quiet room every time you want to nurse them, but maybe like not sitting in a place that's going to distract them. A lot of people will say, oh, if I sit at a couch, or if I sit on the couch or in a chair near a window, then they're constantly like trying to look out the window. Maybe put the dog into a different room, you know, like things like that you could try to do to decrease some of that stimulation.
Yeah. Maybe if you have a toddler, try to time it with the toddler's nap.
Yeah, absolutely. Or give the toddler something to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Give the just for a couple of minutes,
always.
just so that
just
you
give
can
the
get
toddler something to do. That's always going to help.
Yeah. Just something. Give them a snack, something, just to quiet them for 10 minutes. Because it really can be very, very difficult for them to really try to focus to get a feeding in. And the overnight stuff, that's really hard because they're going to make up for it, right? Babies are going to make up for their feeds. They're not feeding a lot during the day. They are going to make up for it during the night. And it's not forever, but it is something that might happen.
And that's where like just a safe bed sharing situation is going to come in really handy. And you can look up, we can link or you can check out those episodes about how to create that safe space. And then just have like lots of pillows. a pillow under your head, a pillow behind your back, a pillow between your knees, so that you can try to get into a comfortable position. I remember that being that was the biggest thing for me with the all the way with nursing through the night, was just me getting so uncomfortable laying in that one position.
Yeah.
And so just trying to do what you can to just make it more comfortable for yourself. And don't put the pillows, over the baby's head. But like, if you put the pillows behind you, that helps you be able to kind of rest your back. Between your knees will help your hips be more comfortable. Under your head.
Yeah.
I just remember trying to create like this whole, like a cocoon for myself so that I could be more comfortable. That was, I do remember that. Just those body aches of just laying in that same position all night.
Yeah. It's really hard.
It is hard. But you don't have to worry about them getting enough, because they will make up for it.
Yeah, they will make up for it. A lot of people will ask, like, how long does this last? Like, how long do babies stay like this? And they don't, like, once you hit that distracted phase, so that usually starts around the 4-month mark or so, that isn't how they behave for the rest of your nursing journey. They do stop with that. I mean, it only lasts maybe a couple of months, and then it gets to be kind of back to normal.
Until it happens
for the most
again.
part.
I mean, it's really just kind of, it's not like
different
it's
phases.
Not linear. Yes, it's just sort of up and down, different things, and you'll do so many different things, and you should do all the things that make it easier. If you're in a phase where turning on the TV for your toddler helps you have moments in the afternoon where you can eat and sit down or whatever, then do it. They're like, these things this is what they're for. This is why they make Bluey and Cocoa Melon, so that you can have, and you're not ruining your child. Okay. It's not true. There's so much stuff out there that's like, just out there as clickbait and trying to make people feel guilty to, I don't know, buy something, or I don't know, just to control people and make them feel uncomfortable. But it's not going to hurt them. You'll probably get sick of the theme song, but that's okay. You just do what you need to do to get through it. It's not forever. It's such a small, in the grand scheme of thing, it is such a small blip on the radar of this whole thing. And making it easier for you and having it everybody be comfortable and happy. I mean, that's what matters. Counts. Yeah, they're going to remember. Yeah. They're going to remember having like a nice, calm childhood instead of a strung out parent who just is like yelling all the time. Yeah, that's how it was when Jack was a baby. I was just like
strung out,
so strung out and so stressed out because I was just believing everything, and I was on the internet all the time, and I was reading all these things, and I was completely stressed out about him watching a show or him having a goldfish cracker, or it had to be organic, and and it so just doesn't matter in the long run. It really doesn't matter.
I remember kind of feeling like that too, that you just wanted everything to be so perfect, and it's just
like you're ruining their life if it's not perfect. And that's just not, that's not true. It's not true at all.
No.
That's not true at all.
It's so funny because now that they're like, my kids are older and they're obviously on their own and they do their own thing. And my daughter is like addicted to Dunkin' coffee, iced coffee. And, my boys eat tons of junk food or whatever, it's like they eat this terrible, they all eat junk food and they all do because they can control their own lives in their, early 20s. And it's like, thank God they had that breast milk when they were younger.
Yeah.
That's all I can think of, because they're going to do what they're going to do.
They are.
Like, you can keep them as organic as you want to in the beginning, in the first couple years of their lives. But then once they hit those teen years and they have the ability to fend for themselves, you can't control what they put in their mouths.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And the fact that they do have breast milk, now this is the science. the science right here is that babies that have breast milk or as babies, have healthier lives. Like they're, the incidences of various diseases and stuff are lower. And that's not, if I'm not saying like if you use formula, your baby's going to have a disease, because Jack had formula. He doesn't have a disease.
Right.
But what I'm saying is like, it's, you can know that this is you're providing the absolute best foundation for your baby's health for the rest of their lives. So when they get to be teenagers and then they just they want to drink Dunkin' coffee and have Doritos all day, you're like, okay, well, your vital organs were developed fantastically when you were a baby, and you'll get through that.
Thank God, right? Like, it's just now, when we're talking about nursing in a carrier, that might sound kind of daunting to people who are new carrier users.
Yeah.
And I think we have an episode on that, don't we? On how to nurse in a carrier?
Probably. It's so hard to describe. Yes. I have some videos on YouTube as well. I should make another one.
Yeah.
Put it on the podcast YouTube channel. Yeah. But it's fantastic. I mean, it depends on the carrier that you're using. There's like the buckle carrier. I recommend a buckle carrier, like the Ergo or the kind that buckle behind your back around the waist. There's like slings, there's, wraps. If you get into the world of baby wearing, you could spend $1 million, and I did. And it's really cool. I mean, there's so many amazing carriers out there. Once I had a second child, I kind of abandoned all those and just used the Ergo, the buckle carrier, because it was just easier to get on and off. Then the other ones kind of have like a wrap around, which is great when you have, just one, and maybe in the newborn you're wrapping them in the Moby, which I really liked the Moby, and I had a ring sling, which was really nice. But it became less practical when I had a second child, because they're just kind of more complicated to get on and off when you're running after a toddler. But the biggest thing for nursing in a carrier is loosening the straps, lowering the baby, and latching them on. So you can remember, loosen, lower, latch.
There you go.
And it takes some practice, but really it's just do it. Just put the carrier on, lower them down, to your breast. If you have larger breasts, you might need to hold your breast up, or you can use, I know people will fold like a washcloth underneath to hold their boob up a little. And you'll just get used to it. Your baby will get used to it. You just keep doing it, and you will get used to it.
Yeah, that's going to help a lot. So if you're dealing with a distracted baby, just know that, like Abby said, everything's linear. Things will change. Things will, it's pretty fluid. You're going to go in and out of these phases. It's very developmental, can be really difficult at times to deal with. But remember, trying to take some stimulation away, trying to nurse at a carrier, and just know that, they are getting what they need. They will get what they need. So try not to worry that they're not going to eat, that they're not eating, because they will. They'll make up for it.
They will.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.